Welcome to our final day in Lucerne in our Switzerland trip. Unfortunately, our last day in Lucerne started with rain and a lot of it. We dragged ourselves out of our hotel room for a 2-block walk to our favorite breakfast place, and then we headed back to our hotel room to wait out the rain. The rain finally stopped around lunchtime and cleared up into some clouds with some blue skies. This meant that while we got some pretty cool photos from walking around town, we weren't going to make it to any mountaintops today because it was way too cloudy. Since we were basically halfway through our final day in Lucerne, we decided we would just take a walk around Lucerne and a walk around the lake and see what we saw. When we got into town, we decided we wanted to go back to the burger place we had on the first day. It wasn't too crowded and it has a good view of the bridge from inside the restaurant. The weather looked to be holding after lunch, and we decided to go for a nice little walk in the sun and partly cloudy skies. I was a little surprised to see people in pedal boats out on the lake, considering it had just stopped raining. And then we also got to see the mountains covered in clouds, and it was just beautiful scenery. We also saw the water taxis going back and forth quite a few times. It was a good day for wildlife as there were quite a few birds out, and the swans and other birds were pretty active. This particular swan was in full speed mode chasing a female around the lake. Once you walk a little ways out of the center of the touristy area of town, it actually becomes a really nice area that's not very crowded. We saw quite a few locals out for walks or runs around the path, and it's a really beautiful view around the lake. Right about this point coming around the lake, we realized we could see the lift that we took to get to the top of our hike the previous day. After walking around the lake for about a mile, we still hadn't decided where we were going. But after probably about a half an hour of indecision, we ended up right next to the Swiss Museum of Transportation. After a quick Google search, we decided it was the most interesting thing around, so we headed on over. Immediately upon entering, there's a gift shop to the left. It was really interesting looking, and we decided to go take a look, even though we weren't really intending on buying anything. Of course, that means we did end up buying something, and this is where I bought a fridge magnet working cuckoo clock, which I thought was pretty interesting. After wandering around the gift shop and buying stuff we shouldn't, we decided to go see what the tickets cost. It was about 37 Swiss francs per person, which is just under $50 US, so we said, hey, let's try it out. Seeing the earthquake plate was already taken and we couldn't play on it, we headed over to the aviation section. Being a bit of a nerd, I really liked looking at all the old airplanes, the helicopters, and all the other cool stuff they had on display. And being a bit of a kid, Melody really enjoyed the interactive exhibits. This particular one's pretty cool because it actually gives you the experience of the wind of a helicopter landing right next to you. As you'll see over the next couple of minutes of video, there's quite a lot in their airspace section. The great thing was a lot of it was in English, and you could read about anything you wanted to. The bad thing is, if you actually read about everything, you'd probably be there for more than a full day. So we kind of checked out some of the highlights, checked out some of the interesting toys and models that they had, and kept on moving. While I was perusing all kinds of interesting engine cutaways, Melody had found the one interactive portion of the exhibit and started cranking up a turbine. After some aimless wandering and skipping past the boat exhibit for the sake of time because we couldn't be here all night, we decided to go over to the road transportation section. The car museum portion had one of those cool multi-level parking areas that a platform goes and retrieves the car and puts it down for viewing. There was a little interactive booth where you could select which car you wanted to see, but it was really slow and we didn't want to wait 5 minutes just to see one car. Upstairs, we wandered into the racing exhibit and they had some real Formula 1 cars and real MotoGP bikes up there. They also had some rally cars and some Dakar cars as well. One thing I wasn't expecting to see is a NASCAR car in Switzerland, but here it was. And then right next to it was the pit stop section. Some folks were trying it out while we were there, and I didn't hang out to try it, but it lets you go in and try to complete a pit stop with changing tires from a Formula 1 car. What takes a pit crew in Formula 1 like 2.5 to 3 seconds to complete was taking about 5 minutes for the folks there trying it out for the first time. After some more wandering and seeing some random cars, we found a wall of Matchbox cars from a really long time ago, and then headed out to the next section. Considering how much the Swiss are known for their trains, there's no way we could skip the train section. They had everything from old steam locomotives to tram cars to more recently deactivated trains. They did a really good job of portraying the trains and letting you see inside with steps and ladders and such without actually having to touch anything. On the far end of the hall were the funiculars. This red one is a modern one from Mount Pilates, which is just outside of Lucerne. The green one is a much older one, and it's really cool to look inside to see how the seats and everything were done. Here we see a model of the Stoos funicular, which is the steepest funicular in the world, which we didn't get a chance to go on because it was cloudy and snowing the entire time we were there. One of the cool things as a former model train enthusiast when I was a kid was to see this enormous model train set that they had created. It was a realistic model of the local mountains in Switzerland and the train tracks and the tunnels and everything that went through the local environment. interesting things we saw when we went outside was they actually have a climbing wall in the Museum of Transportation for some reason. Not sure why. On the way out the door, just before closing hours, we stopped and looked at some of the farm equipment, and Melody decided to climb into one of the tractors to see what it felt like. On the way out of the museum is another gift shop. We went into this one, but luckily we didn't find anything we wanted, so we didn't spend a bunch of money there. After spending some hours in the museum, we decided we should probably head back before it got too dark. The partly cloudy skies and the sunset gave us some great opportunities for some really nice pictures. Since it was in the evening, it was dinner time, and we didn't know where we were getting dinner, we decided to get some gelato to hold us over until we figured that out. After finally getting back to our room and resting for a little bit, it was a little bit late, so we decided we would go to the local pizza place for dinner yet again. This time, instead of getting pizza, we got pasta, and for some reason some of the pasta comes in a bowl and some of it comes in a box. Either way, it was all delicious and top-notch. After a relatively late dinner, we headed back to our room and got packed because the next day we were heading to Interlaken.